to see Lily, and yeah, I just remember walking in and it just felt like my whole world had turned upside down. At this point, she had been put onto a cooling bed for 72 hours. So she was born with HIE because she had lack of oxygen. So when she came out, she had the cord wrapped around her neck, but it wasn't that tight. They could literally just slip it off. So she had some sort of brain damage, but until she had come off the cooling bed, she couldn't have an MRI until she was fully kind of her normal self, so not sedated. She was just not on anything. She was just Lily. Her body temperature, or the cooling bed, was probably, I think it was like 31 or 32 degrees. So it's not really warm because our body temperatures are 35 to 37 degrees. So for us to touch her, she was very cool. Like, she was cool to touch, but she was also heavily sedated, so she couldn't actually feel that she was cold, because if you're that cold, you'd probably be in a lot of pain. So she was heavily sedated. They had some clips, a heap of clips on her head, and they could see that she was having a lot of seizures. I remember Jake saying when he first got there that they put her these things on her brain to see the activity, and he remembers that when he first got there, there was literally nothing. It was just like a flat line with occasional dudunk. The next morning when I went there, he was like, oh my God, like, look at her going, like, look at her, like, her brain. And they were like, yeah, she's had a very good, like, over 20, not even 24 hours, less than 24 hours, her brain activity has gone from nothing to, like, not normal, but something. Waited for the 72 hours. So obviously I wasn't allowed to hold her. The millisecond I got to hold her was when I gave birth to her. And then, yeah, she came off the cooling bed. She eventually came off the breathing apparatus because she didn't need to be ventilated because there was nothing wrong with her lungs. And once they let me hold her, we literally just went in and out. We could spend as much time as we want in the NICU with her. We always went there in the late evening or late afternoon. And then, yeah, we walked back in the next morning and she had been incubated again. She had a tube down her mouth. She, apparently one of her lungs collapsed. I just remember saying, well, I thought nothing was wrong with her lungs. Like, why did this happen? Well, what's going on? And they couldn't really give me answers. Maybe 24 hours later, they tried to take her off it again and she came off it. And then from then onwards, she was on high flow, which is just like a nozzle that just pushes air every so often into her. And then, yeah, she was slowly taken off the sedation to eventually she was on absolutely nothing. She had no cords on her. She literally just had the oxygen, which was like pretty much at the lowest point you can get. I remember it being a Monday. It was a Monday when she had her MRI. Yeah, I remember them sitting down with us saying, okay, we're going to take her for MRI today. And they just prepared us for everything. So obviously they're looking at her daily, looking at her movements and stuff like that. And they pretty much said to us that there's been improvement, but what she should be doing now compared to a newborn that has no brain damage, it's not looking very good. Anyway, so we took that on board and Jake and I just said, we just pretty much went in with an open mind. Like, we wheeled her down. We were able to go with her. So we went from the Mater Mothers over to the Children's Hospital, which they have a link through. They said that they had to sedate her just a tiny bit with the MRI just so she wouldn't move. And I remember Jake and I saying, well, that's a good thing. Like, she's moving. So they had to stop her from moving to be able to take the MRI. The results came back the next morning and yeah, I remember us just sitting in this room with the two doctors. I just remember Dr. Kelly, which was a lady, and she was the lady that looked after us, head doctor. We had the neurologist come in as well. They pretty much told us that Lily has severe brain damage. It wasn't just on the top of her brain, but it was so deep that they couldn't tell us if she could walk, if she could talk. They told us that she had no gag reflex, that eventually she'd have to have a tube in her tummy to be able to be fed, that she would probably have to be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life, and that we would have to suction her secretions out of her mouth. Pretty much have to change the whole of our life to be able to pretty much have Lily come home with us, that we would be in and out of the hospital, because if she were to get sick, it would hurt her a lot compared to anyone else, like us. And I remember being in there and just taking it all in, and I was just crying. Like, Jake was the one that asked all the questions. Like, I just didn't know how to function. I just didn't know what to do. You know, like, you've just been told that your daughter's pretty much potato or for the rest of her life. Like, she's just... And then, yeah, we came out of the meeting. We went and seen Lily and just cuddled her and hugged her and kissed her. And the thing that sucked the most was that she looked so normal and so perfect that we just couldn't get it in our heads that there was something wrong with her. I remember we sat down with the doctors and stuff like that, and they said to us, like, Lily's at the point where she no longer needs to be in hospital because she can go home on oxygen, because a lot of babies go home on oxygen, and you guys can administer her Keppra. Jake and I said we don't want to take her home. And I know that sounds so horrible, but we said, what's another option? And they said, there's a place called the Hummingbird House. And then, yeah, so they told us about the Hummingbird House. They ended up bringing in bigger people from the Hummingbird House, like the doctors and stuff like that. And they told us, like, what their house is for. So, yeah, so we either had the choice of bringing her home or taking her to the Hummingbird House. And I remember we went back that night. That was the night that we decided that we would let Lily go. Yeah, so that was the night that we made the call to all of our family and our close friends and said to them that Lily would have no quality of life to be on this earth, and that it wouldn't be fair for her, and it wouldn't be fair for us to be able to have to change our life, not have any more kids, because I would have to look after Lily as a full-time job, and yeah, it would be too hard to have a baby that's got a disability, a severe disability, and to have other kids. And I know other people do it, like, I understand that, but this is the choice that Jake and I made. So yeah, so we ended up getting transferred to the Hummingbird House. If you guys haven't heard of the Hummingbird House, you seriously need to Google it. It's in Chermside in Brisbane. It is a home away from home. I remember getting my family and Jake's family to come and visit Lily before we decided to do everything, so they could say their last goodbyes to her, just to hang out like a normal family. Like, they eventually just took her off the oxygen because she didn't actually need it. Watched TV with her, she slept in our bed. We just did things that normal families would do. And when we were in there, it felt like she wasn't sick, that we were going home. We were coming home to bring her here, to have a family, to have a little girl at home. And then, yeah, I swear everything falls on a Monday, but on the Monday that we would start the things for the process for her to pass away. And they told us that it won't take long for her to pass away. So yeah, so we were expecting it to happen really quickly, but you know, lo and behold, 5 weeks later, she passed away. We had the best time with her, like the best time with her. I just remember the night that she passed away. It was at night time. Jake and I used to bath her every night, without a doubt. There was nothing that we wouldn't do that we would do here at our house. So we bathed her every night, but for some absurd reason, that night I said to Jake, I'm like, I think she doesn't need a bath. Like, she can just hang out with us tonight. And he's like, all right. And she was lying, she always just used to chill out on the couch next to us on the pillow. And I just had this rush of me to pick her up and just cuddle her. And Jake was like, I'm just gonna hop in the shower. And I was like, okay, I'll just sit here and watch TV. And then I don't know, it was just so weird. I just had to pick her up and hold her. So I was holding her, was loving her. And during the day of that day, she was doing this thing where she would just hold her breath started off being 5 seconds, and then it just got longer and longer and longer for like up to a minute. And the nurses there were like, this is the signs that her body is shutting down. And I think that's why that night I was like, let's not bath her, let's just hang out as a family, just sit on the couch together. Yeah, so I remember Jake hopping in the shower and He just turned off the shower and I just yelled at him and I said, babe, I said, you need to push the button to get the nurse. I said, something's not right. Something's wrong with her. You need to get her. So he was like, okay. And he ran out with his towel on, pushed the button. He went back in to put his clothes back on so then he wasn't naked for when the nurse walked in. As the nurse walked in, Jake walked to the couch. I just remember looking at Lily. I just remember looking down at her. And it was the first time she looked straight at me. And then, yeah, she passed away in my arms. So anyway, we came home to everything at home. The cot was there. Everything was the same as what it was when we left. Everything was ready in the bedroom for her. And then, yeah, 6 days later, we went back to say goodbye to Lily. We decided that we would get her cremated. So we got 3 butterflies to release. So one for her, one for Jake, and one for one for me. So that we would release. So we released 3 butterflies. While she was still here, she was just in like a little Moses basket on a cooling mat. Yeah, so we just said goodbye to her, and then Jake and I took the Moses basket to the funeral lady that was there with the car, and yeah, that was the last time we seen her, which was I think it was September the 26th that we finally said goodbye to her. And then a couple of days later, we drove back to Brisbane to pick her up. Well, Lily's ashes. So, yeah. So this is our Lily. So she's always here with us now. If there's one thing that Lily has taught us is that life's way too short to not enjoy the little things. Just don't ponder about things. If you want to do something, obviously reasonable little things, like if it costs you $1 million, you don't have $1 million, don't do it. But little things, I don't know, if you want to go on holidays to the Sunshine Coast for the weekend, you keep thinking about not doing it, just do it. Just have fun with your families, have fun with your friends, just enjoy life to the fullest. Jake and I always have to regroup because it sucks, because you just go back into your normal life and you just monotonous life. You go to work, you come home, you cook dinner, you go to bed, you repeat. And Jake and I just have to, every so often we have to regroup and go, no, what do we want to do today? Like, do we want to go this? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to do this? Like, just the little things that keep you happy. Just do it. That's all I ask, okay? Lily's helped so many people as well. Like, it's amazing that someone that's not physically here can help so many people. It might not be massive things that she's been helping with, but one beautiful angel. Well, thanks guys for listening to my lengthy birth story about Lily. I'm sorry for crying, but I haven't told that story in a long time, and yeah, being that it was my birthday yesterday, everything's just hit me hard at the moment. But thank you so much for watching and listening. I will eventually do a birth story about Mia. That one was super quick, so hopefully it won't be as long as this one. But yeah, thank you again so much for watching it.